to answer any questions that you may have today. So we are a close partner of Kids in Migration. So we help them with any education needs. So we have a full product in Australia, and one of our close partners is UTAS, of course. And UTAS is a fantastic university. It's one of the best products available in Australia. It's in a remarkable location. If you ever get the chance to go to Tasmania, it's one of the most beautiful places on the planet. It's small. It's not as busy as Sydney or Melbourne, but it is so lovely and beautiful, and many opportunities there for work, for study, and of course migrating to Australia. So we'll touch on that a little bit further on. And we also have a lot of high schools as well. A lot of you may be interested, if you're interested in migrating to Australia, there's a lot of high schools available that we have, a lot in Tasmania, a lot, of course, in New South Wales and Victoria as well. So feel free to ask me any questions on that today, or if you're not ready today, you can ask much later on as well. So that's it for me. And I would like to introduce Ray, who is our close partner, and now she is the International Student Recruitment Country Manager for Singapore, Malaysia and Brunei. She has been in the industry for a long time, since 2014, focusing on Australia and New Zealand. So she's also very well qualified to talk about all of the Australian market and even New Zealand as well. And she's been with University of Tasmania for about 2 years or so. So Ray is going to have a nice presentation on University of Tasmania. It's the only university in Tasmania, and it's quite a comprehensive university. It's quite good in a range of different study areas, but most famously in marine studies. It's top of the world in marine studies, and I'm sure Ray will talk a little bit more about that later on. So thank you so much, Ray, for coming today, and it's great for you to join us today.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you for the introduction. Also, thank you, Kids in Migration, for having UTAS on this session today. As mentioned, I will be introducing University of Tasmania and also the courses that the university offer on a tertiary level. But specifically today, I would like to focus a little bit more on our AMC, Australia Maritime College, which is actually the only national maritime training institution that you can find in Australia. So let me just bring up the presentation slide so everybody can go on the journey with me to understand and know University of Tasmania a little bit more. Right. The University of Tasmania, we mainly focus and have this four pillar as our main vision and mission of the university. We focus on a quality course that the university offers, ranging from about 100 undergraduate courses to 150 postgraduate courses. On top of that, we have one-of-a-kind university campus that you can find across in Australia. So a little bit different from some university whereby it's just a campus university, and whereby you'll find some university is more of a city university. University of Tasmania actually has a little bit of both, because we are trying to maximize our university courses. And for example, for our medicine program, we are actually situated just next to the Royal Hobart Hospital, and also some of our nursing facilities, which is based in Rozelle as well. We also pride ourselves for our research capacity. The University of Tasmania actually has a lot of international research that is ongoing, and one of it, which is also within the maritime sector, and it's recently last year been awarded as one of the biggest project by the Australian government, as well as working together with the Asian and Commonwealth facilities as well. And of course, last but not least, our home, our Tasmanian state, our unique environment that actually puts us where we are to be excellent in courses such as our marine biology, our agricultural science, and so forth. Now, getting into Tasmania, if you guys looked onto the world map, you'll find that Australia is made out of two islands, the big Australia Island, as well as the Tasmania State Island. We are the only state that is also an island by ourselves. And because Tasmania does not have an international airport, students and parents will need to fly international route into Melbourne, Sydney, or Brisbane. And then they will have a daily domestic flight transfer from this city down to either Hobart or Launceston. So Hobart would be Tasmania's capital, and Launceston is our second biggest city that you can find in the state of Tasmania. A little fun fact about Tasmania, we are one of the blue and green state of Australia. And if you look at the map, half of Tasmania is green, and the government intends to keep it that way by making it 42% of Tasmania as a national park and World Heritage Site. That's why it makes Tasmania one of the places where you can find the cleanest water as well as the cleanest air in the world. You'd be surprised that certain time of the year where the rain and the wind comes, certain season, we can actually bottle up that rainwater, and that rainwater is so clean that it passes the national safety requirement to be a drinking water. And I've had it myself. It's really, really nice. It's sweet and nice. The other thing is that Tasmania runs on predominantly renewable energy. 93% of the power that Tasmania uses comes from our renewable energy. And we are also one of the net electricity exporter to the rest of Australia. One thing that a lot of people couldn't tell from looking at the map is that Tasmania, even though compared to the rest of the state of Australia, it might look small, but the fact is Tasmania's size is 100 times landmass of Singapore, but we only have 10% of Singapore's population, which puts us about 530,000 population plus minus. And uniquely that you can only find in Tasmania, one of it is this eucalyptus tree. Is actually the tallest flowering tree in the world, as well as the third tallest tree that you can find in the world. So because, like I've mentioned, the wonderful environment of Tasmania, we are able to keep this heritage and this proud history within the state for so long. The second picture that you can see here, which is called the red handfish, is actually one of the endangered species fish that you can find in the world. And when the university marine biology team actually discover a new population within the coast of Tasmania Island, it actually puts the known number of population double up to about 80 population fishes in the world. So the fact that it can survive in Tasmanian water, it makes us unique, whereby you can find a lot more biodiversity, and we believe there's more still to be discovered from our water. And of course, everybody knows the famous Tasmanian devil, which used to be found across in Australia, but because of development and so forth, now it is native to the state of Tasmania only. So Tasmania is actually the 4th oldest university that you can find in Australia, and also we have the 4th oldest law school in Australia. As mentioned, Australian Maritime College is Australia's national training centre for maritime education, but at the same time, we also have a world-class institution for marine and Antarctic studies. Tasmania, Australia, Hobart is one of the pathway for research for Antarctic studies. Fun fact as well. And also we have Menzies Institutes for Medical Research, which puts us a competitive institution for medical studies and medicine as well. In total, we have approximately 45,000 student population with an estimated close to 8,000 international students. So that will make students feel that, hey, you get a nice Australian mix. You can still feel the Australian culture in Tasmania as well. Tasmania actually has got 2 main campuses and 1 teaching institution. Hobart will be our main Sandy Bay campus. And then we have some of our professional courses being taught at our Launceston campus. And we also teach fast-track nursing in the Rozelle Sydney Teaching Institute. University of Tasmania offers a wide range of courses from agriculture to architecture to music, design, engineering. We also have a lot of health sciences program and all the way to business courses and economic courses as well. But today, where I would like to focus on is the College of Science and Engineering, specifically our Australian Maritime College. A lot of students actually don't know, but seafaring is actually a major career choice around the world because 90%, some country up to 80 or 70% of their product needs to be brought in by cargo ship. And who will work on this cargo ship? Who will be in this career? These are the people who actually graduate from a seafaring undergraduate course. So in the University of Tasmania, we will be able to teach students to either train to be in the nautical science area, whereby you can eventually be a captain, or you can work in the marine engineering sector, whereby you can develop and deploy any engineering system, or you can be in the marine electrical engineering, whereby you can work on the ship where you will help to maintain the system and the engineering. So it's a little bit like the electrical and mechanical engineer of a cargo ship. All of our courses are approved by the Australian Maritime Safety Authority and is eligible towards the Certificate of Competency. Now, bear in mind, this Certificate of Competency, short for COC, is actually recognized worldwide. So by taking this COC, you can say go to Canada, you can go to Hong Kong, and this certificate is actually recognized globally. And the other one, if let's say, oh, you don't feel like, have a career based on ship, we actually have a career whereby you can help to develop this cargo ship, or you building and structure for the maritime industry, and therefore you don't need to spend any time on the ship. This would be taught by our Bachelor of Engineering. Either you do it as a specialization choice of naval architecture, where you will learn how to design and build any vessel that moves on water or in water. So that can be cargo ship, it can be speedboat, it can be submarine. Or you learn how to do the ocean engineering specialization, whereby you learn how to build structure by the coast or subcoastal area. So it can be either ports, it can be oil rig, or underwater restaurant. There is actually one underwater restaurant in the Netherlands, which is actually designed by an alumni of the University of Tasmania. The other one would be marine and offshore engineering. whereby you will develop and introduce new system or crane or engineering that is being used by this maritime industry, whereby all these specialization choices, you don't need to spend time in the sea, and you can do it in the comfort of your office and still have the experience of the maritime field. All of our engineering courses would have a minimum of 12 weeks real-life work experience. The university will assist the student in getting this work experience, and it is accredited by the Engineers Australia. So when students graduate, they are eligible to register with the Engineer Australia and get the license as a professional engineer in the end. So put it in a nutshell, Bachelor of Engineering specialization would be the ones, naval architecture would be the core, the body of the submarine, and the marine and offshore engineering would be all this within the submarine. So because we are the National Training Institute of Australia, we have exciting facilities at AMC. One of it is this virtual simulation that is using the latest port condition and situation to use it as a training ground for our students within our campus. So we can mimic the port in Sydney, we can mimic the port in Singapore, we can mimic the port in Malaysia, so that students can have a feel, because different port situated in different landscape will have a different environment, whereby wind speed is different, your wave, there is current and all those things. So students can get a feel and understand how to pilot the ship this way. And if let's say you're in the engineering sector, we actually have this fascinating wave pool that students get to use. So the first picture here is actually 1 kilometer long forward wave pool, whereby after you have designed your latest speedboat, you put it into this wave pool and test it using the wave. It can imitate the wave height of a tsunami. And the middle one is actually sideways wave pool. So we actually don't have like a football field size. That's why we have to separate them to a front wave pool and a side wave pool. But it is still very fun to look at it.
Ray, there's no audio on your video presentation.
Oh, let me just double check that.
Mechanical engineer. The best way I can describe a naval architect is an architect and a civil engineer put together.
Sound
Yeah.
good, huh? Okay.
Difference being that an architect and a civil engineer build a building that doesn't move, or a naval architect is designing a vessel that performs in dynamic conditions.
I could see myself ending up in any offshore application-based engineering firms, whether it be oil and gas, renewables, maritime operations, and then even the whole field of AUVs. It's really up to you where it's going to take you.
Our graduates are going overseas. They're going to Norway, they're going to North America, they're going to Europe, they're going into the Asian market to then tackle a whole diversity of problems.
If I got a qualification from AMC, I'll have a higher opportunity of getting a job from a foreign company in Malaysia. So that makes a higher pay. So the thing about AMC, right, we get a lot of hands-on practical instead of just studying on them. I feel that this is a good experience for me.
On the AMC campus, there's such a diverse range of facilities that cover anything from model boat testing to learning how to survive at sea to actually getting hands-on exposure with boats.
These facilities at AMC are world leading, and our mandate is to try to get that into the undergraduate teaching program as much as possible, so that the students can get that hands-on practice. That's something that is truly unique within AMC.
Giving interested students the ability to partake in these sort of science experiments and getting a bit involved in it has really just played a massive role in who I am now, actually.
It's really hands-on and really interesting. There's the theoretical side of it, but there's also the project side of it, and that just makes it a lot more fun, a lot more interesting. And also it's just really good community being as well. So definitely recommend it.
Engineers are all about teamwork. If you can't really work in team, you can't be a good engineer. So at this stage, like from very first semester, very first year, we are working in teams. We are getting to know other people.
Tasmania is a very welcoming place. I met a lot of students from other countries. We get along pretty well, and the lecturers are very friendly too.
Tasmania is really beautiful, like literally very beautiful, and people here are very friendly.
I'm at AFC for the enthusiasm, for the drive to be a leader within this industry. And there's a real commitment that you don't necessarily see in other schools.
I'll definitely recommend AMC.
So moving away from the science part of AMC, the university also offers the business side of things, which we call it the Bachelor of Global Logistics and Maritime Management. Of course, if let's say student wants to come and further their studies into the masters, we also offers a range of master's program within the maritime industry at a postgraduate level. But today I'm just going to focus more on this global logistics, which is a 3-year program within the university. And what does logistics actually entail? You'd be surprised that getting a broccoli from South Australia into Malaysia, they need to go through a lot of people, go through a lot of sectors from...
Excuse me, Ray. I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation, but I think there was something wrong with your presentation. We can't actually see what is on the slide. The quality is a bit off.
Let's try again.
Yeah.
Can you all see the broccoli picture?
Now we can see the broccoli picture.
Right, cool. So as I've mentioned, actually international logistics covers a wide range of sector. Even by just getting a simple broccoli, that because Malaysia, we don't really grow our own broccoli, and we normally need to import our broccoli, and most of them are actually from South Australia. And you'd be surprised that they need to go through a lot of people, a lot of sector, from the start of producer eventually to our plate. And this, everything that you see here is within the realm of logistics. So when students say, oh, what do I actually study in logistics? So you imagine, if it's not broccoli, you imagine our ice cream by F&N, you know, from starting, how do they make sure the quality is there, to the freshness of it, to it doesn't melt on its way, being transported to your shopping mall or your shop's fridge, and eventually that ends onto your plate. All this are logistics. Right, so this is actually a very interesting National Geographic snippet that talks about the Singapore maritime sector. And the reason why I find this video so powerful is because all the the career that you see in here, be it the captain to the pilot of the ship to people who are working in the transporting the cargo, all of them are from courses that graduate from our AMC college. So I hope you enjoy this video as much as I do.
While many Singaporeans are fast asleep, a global hub port is wide awake, operating 24/7 like clockwork, connecting the world. This International Maritime Center is ready for yet another brand new challenge ahead. As first light hits the water of Singapore, hundreds of vessels have descended on one of the world's busiest ports, many the size of skyscrapers. Every 2 to 3 minutes, a ship enters or leaves Singapore waters. Guiding these mega ships to berth can be a delicate operation.
The most challenging part is we are handling one of the narrowest channels in the world. We have to predict, plan in advance if there's any potential conflict that will build up.
Dead slow ahead. 39 push full to starboard.
Ship owners invest over $100 million on an ultra-large container vessel. Maximizing the usage of the vessel will mean to move the right type of cargoes efficiently.
Think of a job as a bit of a matchmaking. We have someone who needs to move a cargo. They need to find the right type of ship at the right timing, at the right price. So our challenge, of course, often is to match these together. About $65.
These megaships bring with them cargo weighing over 300,000 elephants in a single day. It adds up to over 2.3 billion tons each year.
You name it, we are essentially carrying it. So that can be grain, it can be coal, it can be iron ore, fertilizers. There's a whole host of different commodities that we're carrying on the ships today.
Singapore's lead in the maritime industry is realized through an intricate and unique ecosystem, formed by a skilled workforce from different disciplines, working in the offshore and marine engineering sectors, on ships, in the port, and in maritime services, that adopt innovative technologies and creative measures in overcoming challenges. All these on an island barely half the size of New York City. But as trends in high-sea trade evolve, how will the island state remain as a global leader in the maritime industry? Can it depend on its people and their ability to continue adapting and innovating? Where is Maritime Singapore heading? Inside Maritime.
So that's all from the University of Tasmania, introducing the courses that we have. Up next is just a simple entry requirement, which if let's say you don't understand this part of things, please feel free to get in touch with Yes Education. They would be the best person for you to speak to understand whether or not you have met the university requirement to get into our courses. Generally, we would require students to have at least a year 12.
Ray, sorry to disturb again. I think there's something wrong with your tables again.
Yeah, the quality is quite bad. The resolution is hard to read.
Yeah.
Okay. It could be my internet that's not too good, and the wording could be a little bit small. But as I've mentioned, feel free to get in touch with Yes Education, and they would have the full information of what results you would require to get in. But generally, we would still need students to achieve at least a year 12 education level to be eligible to study in the University of Tasmania. And we also have a range of scholarship that students can explore. They range from a minimum 10% up to a 25% tuition fee scholarship. And also we have specific college scholarship and bursary for students to explore as well. And last but not least, the university has a range of on-campus and off-campus accommodation for students to feel at home. And all this accommodation comes either with bathroom attached or without bathroom attached. And the prices to stay on campus is actually very much more affordable as compared to bigger cities like in Melbourne and in Sydney. Generally, for students, this is the estimated cost of living between 16 to 20,000 Australian dollar per year to include food and accommodation.
I was very nervous. It was my first time leaving home.
It's a really big transition for me coming from such a far away country down to Hobart. But when I arrived, there were so many people from the community who actually came and welcomed me.
And a lot of them actually helped me out with my luggage and they actually brought me to my room.
The moment when I saw my room, it was really gorgeous, like the view, I had the sea view.
The room is perfect for studying.
There were 2 study tables in each apartment, so my friends will come with me after classes. They will help me with studying.
Living on campus, you have that opportunity to study in your own room, but more often than not, you will study in communal areas. You study with people as a group and share ideas. You're working collaboratively, even if they're not in the same course. There's always ideas to be shared.
Living on campus gave me way more time, knowing that from accommodation down to my class is just 5 minutes.
And it's even only 5 minutes away from the supermarket. You can walk anywhere here.
As soon as I was looking for accommodation, my parents always asked me, oh, what about securities?
So for security reasons, I actually had my own personal swipe card and it gets me into buildings and as well as into my room.
Why did I choose to stay here rather than off campus? The people. I met people from overseas, people who were from the mainland, and the common theme for all of us, even though we were all studying different courses, was that we were all in the same boat. We'd all just come to uni and we'd all, made that leap into independent life.
It was such a very, very beautiful community they have here.
You're meeting so many people, you're making a nice friend group, and then if you decide you want to move out of college, you can always get to university apartments.
I'll always be able to help here if I had any question, if any concern.
Whenever we see each other around college, we just call out to one another. So it makes me feel really important and belong here.
I've definitely made lots of friends and some of them are friends for life.
To make friends at uni, a great place to start, especially if you're living on campus, is the welcome barbecues. People are so happy to talk to you. The university actually offers a cooking class, which is really great for learning about those dishes from various cultures. You learn all these new skills and you learn all these new flavours.
We used to eat together, share food together.
Someone will be in charge of rice, someone will be in charge of the curry itself, someone will be in charge of drinks. Food, it does that to people, it brings people together.
I have a really good balance with my studies, with my life, with activities here.
The scenery here is very beautiful, like the mountains and the waterfalls.
I've never been to a place like Tasmania.
It has been a great journey and I actually look forward to graduate this year.
Just the atmosphere is just the best.
Don't be scared, just get excited.
Right. So lastly, I just wanted to reassure the audience today because at the beginning of the presentation, I did mention that Tasmania has a small population, and some people will be thinking, hey, would it be like a very kampong place? It's a very quiet and there's nothing going on there. This next video that I'm going to show you is a time-lapse of Tasmania, and it actually shows a very balance of a city, but also the nature side of the state. that's all from me, and I will pass the floor to Dato Michael.
Thanks very much, Ray, for sharing with us such a beautiful video on Tasmania. I personally have not been there. Actually looking forward to be there. Okay. Before we move on to the Q&A session, I would like to pass the floor to Dr. Michael to actually explain about the skill migration in Australia and how do this studying Australia actually give you an additional benefit for your future migration plan. Dato, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jimmy. Thank you, Bob, for organizing Ray to join us as our guest speaker. It's great. After looking at the video and through your presentation, I wish I was go back 30 years younger and start my university life in Tasmania. And Ray, it was really good that you share about the maritime. I think there's something that a lot of us just take it for granted, that it's such a huge industry. And in terms of job prospect, it's large, and it's good that UTAS actually has a maritime school to be able to accommodate in. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much again for joining our Saturday live forum. It's great that you guys have been following up our video. We try to make it as more exciting as possible, as more new information as possible. So today is really an honor that you have listened to University of Tasmania. Just a snapshot of one particular schools that she's sharing, as she has more than 100 over undergrad and 150 over postgrad courses. So it's a very large university. So do explore the website and feel free to contact us. Now, let me come in to talk about your children, right? So if your children enter the tertiary education to study in Australia, what are their options after they graduate? So some of our children, including my own children, they graduated in Australia and they say, Mom and Dad, I would prefer to have my life in Australia. And that's where we as the parents, we will start to prepare for them. So I prepare very much year ahead for my children to know that when they graduate, very likely they won't come back. So I actually prepare a pathway for them to have their permanent residence, and then from there they stay on to work. Now, however, what happens if your children graduate under a student visa? They are not a permanent resident, right? So one way is to apply before they finish their study or before they turn 33. The parent apply under skill category if they're entitled for the age, or for business and investor, you can go in for investment or business visa. Now, however, there's a big number of students who graduated in Australia and they say, Mom and Dad, I want to stay back. So that's why Immigration Australia, Department of Home Affairs, came out with a graduate visa. Just let me share a screen about the graduate visa. Okay, so they have a visa. Jimmy, can you see me? Can you see the video?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Okay. So the graduate visa is a temporary graduate visa subclass 489. Basically, it has its eligibility requirement from there. So the good thing about this visa is when your child graduate with those approved courses, they will be given a period of 18 to 24 months of visa for them to find a job to gain work experience. So this is one option. Now, but the key thing today I will share with you today will be about permanent resident pathway for your children. Let me just bring up my PowerPoint. Right, so internet is very slow. Okay, I'll just go straight into the skill migration, all right? So general skill migration, why Tasmania? Now, if your children graduate in Tasmania, there are a lot of advantages, all right? Firstly, let me share about the benefit of studying in Australia. As Ray has shared quite substantially and quite in-depth about the cost of living and the lifestyle there. So in terms of migration purpose, when you study, your children study in Tasmania, it's considered a regional university, right? So the living cost is much lower compared with the major cities. And the good news is that the Tasmania state government, they do sponsor graduate, right? Those who study in Tasmania, after they graduate, and with some work experience and some without work experience, to sponsor them to have a provisional visa or permanent visa. And on top of that, when your children study in Tasmania, it falls under regional, so you get additional 5 points for it. And on top of studying in Australia, another 5 points, so you get extra 10 points from there. All right, as I shared earlier on, Tasmania government do provide nomination for skilled visa for those who graduate there. And they basically have two versions of visa they will nominate. One is a subclass 190, and another one is a subclass 491, right? So when they nominate you for subclass 190, the state will actually provide the applicant 5 points. And if they nominate you as a subclass 491, they will give you 15 points. So what is different between these two visas? Subclass 190 is a permanent resident, subclass 491 is a provisional visa. So if you are sponsored by a state government for your skilled visa, you will get priority processing, and in terms of the speed of getting the visa grant, based on our past experience, those under state nomination, the process time is shorter compared with those going for the independent visa subclass 189. Okay, and on top of that, once the migrant moves to Australia, the Tasmania government basically will have a support for new migrants to come in. So you can reach out to them, and they do conduct seminars in terms of your settlement, your question on housing, on education, and how to prepare yourself for job ready. Okay, now let me go into the technical detail of the nomination. Now for the state government to nominate you for subclass 190, there are basically two pathways you can go through. One is that if you're in Australia, study in Australia, you are a graduate from Tasmania, right? And obviously, University of Tasmania is a registered tertiary education, right? And you have to be living in the state for at least 2 years, and you must show that you and your dependent are currently living in Tasmania and provide evidence that there's a genuine commitment to live in Tasmania. Category 2, for those who are working in Tasmania. So you've been working in Tasmania for at least 6 months or more, right? Then your occupation fall onto the Tasmania skilled occupation list, and your employment can prove that your employer is an established company in Tasmania and operation for at least 12 months, and your position is genuine, right? It must be a full-time job, 35 hours a week. So if it's a part-time job, you can combine 2 part-time jobs in together. And then you and your dependent must show that there is a genuine commitment to live in Tasmania. So this is the criteria for you to obtain nomination for the subclass 190. Then for the subclass 491, this is a skilled work regional visa, right? And Tasmania is classified under regional. So there's also multiple pathways for you to apply in. For those who study in Tasmania, straightforward, you graduate and you complete your study in Tasmania and you meet the Australia study requirement. This is one option you can go for those who finish your study in University of Tasmania. And those who are having working experience in Tasmania, all right, you can provide a 6 months pay slip to show that you have evidence of working. So if you're on a graduate visa and you work there for 6 months, this could be an option for you to apply. Category 3A is actually for overseas migrant, so overseas applicant. So overseas applicant who has your occupation under the Tasmania skilled occupation list, right? Very important, you need to prove that you have sufficient employment opportunity in your nominated occupation and the occupation is related to your skill, right? So in this part, we have a lot of clients who ask us, how do we do it, right? That's where our expertise is. We will be able to come in to advise you to prepare for you to get the documents ready, all right, to prove that you have sufficient employment opportunity in the state. And then you have to prepare a statement about why you want to live in Tasmania and do some research, right? So we'll basically give you the guideline to prepare that. Another pathway is for those who have job offer. So if you have a job offer from a Tasmania company, all right, an established employer with more than 12 months, it has to be a genuine employment, you have an employment contract, this you can actually apply under category 3B. And those who have family members who live in Tasmania, that could be also an option where you must prove evidence that your relative is living in Tasmania. You have to prove your family tree through your birth certificate and your passport. And a relative in Tasmania have to prove that they've been living there for at least 12 months. So this is the two pathway for you to go in under the state nomination, subclass 190 and subclass 491. So with that, I'll hand over back to Jimmy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato, for sharing with us the requirements required for the state sponsorship, and also Ray to share with us about UNITAS, and also on both to share with us about the educational service available. For now, we'll open up the floor for Q&A. For those who have questions, please feel free to type at the comment section on our Facebook Live video. If we weren't able to take all your questions, not to worry, our colleagues and our team will then contact to you personally. Okay, the first question is from Mr. Lee, I presume. That would be for Ray. Do UNITAS conduct online courses for the maritime courses that you just mentioned, you just shared with us just now?
We do for certain courses, for the seafaring as well as for the global logistics. We are able to cater for distance learning, whereby students learn online the entire course. But the marine naval architecture, the engineering side of it, students will not be able to do it as a distance learning course, and they will have to be a full-time student on campus to complete that program.
Okay, thank you. Then the next question will be more divert to Dato. It's also again from Mr. Lee. He said he's already 37 years old this year. By the time he finished the courses will be 4 years down the road. He will be 41 years old. Is he still eligible for the skill migration if you plan to migrate to Australia?
Yeah, the skill migration cutoff age will be under 45. So if the person is less than 45, all right, there is a point test. So obviously, as we go more senior, we get less point. So if Mr. Lee were to pursue the option of studying there and then finish a degree course and move on to a skill migration, it is possible. There's a point test we can calculate. The good news is that if he study in University of Tasmania, there's additional 5 points for regional, 5 points to study in Australia, there will be 10 points. And the Tasmanian government sponsorship is 15 points. That will give him 25 points ahead towards the 65 points. Then there are other points that are on qualification, on work experience. So do provide us your contact. I will get one of my staff to contact you to run through the point test for you.
Thank you, Dato. The next question is from Keith. I think if Bo can help us. Keith said his sons will be finishing A-level by end of the year, and he have intention to study in Australia, but he have yet to decide which part of Australia. But after viewing our video, because the interest in engineering is strongly with the son, so they are considering the Uni Tasmania. But how should they go about to prepare themselves to enroll or move to Tasmania, because they only have 6 months ahead before the son finish the A-level?
So the students will, when will they finish the A-level?
Based on his question is the son will be finishing probably by end of the year. So how should they start to prepare from now onward?
So what they can do, they can prepare their documents now. So passport, they can provide their recent academic papers right now, and then we can send them to University of Tasmania. So we can get the student to fill out an application form along with their academic record. And then what University of Tasmania can do, they can send what's called a conditional offer. So even though the student has not got the final result for the A-level just yet, they can get the conditional offer. And once the student does have the final result, we will then upload that final result to the university, and then they will give a conditional offer, an unconditional offer, meaning that a full offer will be given. So we can start with the application right now, straight away.
Oh, Does it mean they have not completed their A-level, they can already do the application without
Yes.
A-level result?
Yes, that's correct. They can.
Okay, so Keith, then I will pass your, if you can leave us your contact, I'll pass your contact to Bo. Bo will able to touch base with you and then guide you on what is the next course of action. And Ray, Mr. Lee do ask you if you possible to share with him the naval architecture courses information. He would love to have it and want to find out a bit more about it. Okay.
Yeah, sure. To actually a straightforward way is that we have the detailed every year subject listed on our university website. So Mr. Lee can feel free to go there or just be in touch with Bo, and then Bo can send the link and direct Mr. Lee to the appropriate website.
Okay, the next question I think best with Dato can help is that if the student had do an online distance learning, do he still entitle the bonus point and also get the state nomination as you have shared with us just now?
Study is no. It has to be studied in Australia for at least 2 years. Now, the other good news about Tasmania is that the current COVID-19, there are some exemption where students who can't return back, which means if they are studying already in Tasmania and they, because of the COVID, they are got stuck in their home country or they are forced to do online, there are some exemption by the state government to actually look into nomination for that. But in general means you have to study full year, 2 years full-time study in the regional area.
So which means that in order to claim the bonus point that you have shared just now, and also to easier get a nomination from the state, is good to actually do an onshore study in Tasmania instead of a distance learning.
Yes, you have to do onshore study. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato. Bo, there is Mr. Gopi here. I want to find out a bit about, he planned to send his children, which is 11 and 12, for I think primary and middle school study in Australia. So how should he go about it?
So there's a couple of questions you have to ask yourself. Which city you want to consider? Whether you want to go to a private school or a public school. That's generally the biggest question. Public schools do cost for international students. They're around 14,000 to 16,000 Australian dollars per year. Very high for quality price ratio. Compared to Canada, compared to UK, compared to US, that's a very competitive price for public schools. If you're not interested in public schools, you can consider private schools. So the tuition will be much higher, around 35 to 40,000 Australian dollars per year. Now, what is the difference between public and private schools? It's a common question. Private schools, generally the class size is smaller. The reputation is higher with the local students for sure. Their facilities unquestionably are better. They tend to be much stronger with extracurricular activities. So if your student, if your daughter or son is very strong in, let's say, sport or art or dance, kind of those more extracurricular activities, I would definitely send my children to a private school. Having said that, public schools do very well with ranking. They do very well for, to enter. The progression rate to university is also very high for public school too. But if you're thinking more on the budget side, public school is very fantastic. I have a lot of schools that are very high quality, good for maths, good for English. But if you're looking for a more all-around comprehensive school, I would select private school. And then again, you have to consider which city. So Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Hobart as well. There's some really good private schools as well. Some of the oldest private schools in Australia can be found in Hobart as well. And a lot of those students do then progress on to University of Tasmania as well. So in terms of preparation, usually Australia, whether it's public or private school, they will look at the previous 2 years academic record. As long as your academic record is around GPA like 70% out of 100, they will consider you. But one caveat is that if you're applying for private school in Australia, you must do a test called the AEAS test. It's an entry test for private schools in Australia. It's very unique, only for Australia. They do testing in KL, They do testing in Australia as well if the child is already in Australia. But if for more information on that, it's very detailed. You can get in contact with me. I'm happy to talk more and send you some links in regards to that as well. So we have a lot of schools. So if you're interested, you can please let myself know.
Thanks, Vo. Just out of my own curiosity, what is the price difference between a public and a private school in Australia?
Yeah, so let's say New South Wales, for example. New South Wales, the high school is around, let's say year 10 to year 12. That's around 16,000 Australian dollars. Primary school, though, so that case is, it looks like you said 11 years old, 12 years old, that would be primary school. That's around 14,000 Australian dollars in New South Wales. And that would be, New South Wales being the most populous state, that's considered more pricey for the public school. If you go to Northern Territory or if you go to Tasmania, that would then go to around 11,000 to 12,000 Australian dollars. So the difference is not too big between the states, but if you compare public school to private school, that's a huge difference. And that's why I talk about the quality price ratio, because for public school, you're only paying 16,000 Australian dollars, but the succession rate to university is very good. The quality of teaching is very, very good as well. And if you're focused more on mathematics, science, English, it's public schools are perfectly fine. And I know some very good schools personally that are quite strong in these fields. But if you want to give your child a more Australian experience, and if you want your child to go, have more extracurricular activities, like I myself went to a private school. I like sport. I played tennis. I played cricket. I also like drama and debating as well. Debating is also really fun extracurricular to do. You can consider private school.
Thanks very much, Bo. Ray, there's a Miss Hui asking now, in the midst of the Australia is locking down for international traveler to be to Australia. So how is it possible to still enroll at this point of moment for UNITAS?
Yep. Well, the good news is that Australia is doing very well in controlling COVID, and other than the bigger city, which is unavoidable, many of other states like Perth, South Australia, Tasmania, we've had 0 cases for as many weeks as I can remember. So kudos to Australian government for that. But at the moment, we are going ahead with an online teaching for students at the moment, just for half a year, starting in July, because July is our next intake starting. And then hopefully with this good control being kept up, next year, February, we are able to have all students to come back on campus already.
And she would also like to know, okay, what is her minimum requirement in terms of to enroll into the engineering courses in UNITAS in terms of minimum education background? You did mention year 12, okay, and what other requirement do she need to comply in order for her to enroll?
So for year 12 students, mathematics as well as physics as their year 12 subject is compulsory. So if students are missing either one of them, then they will not be able to get into our engineering program. And in Australian term, we need students to have at least ATAR 70 to be eligible into the program. And if let's say students are coming in using their A-levels program, and we are looking at a BCC grade for their A2 requirement for them to be eligible into the program. If student can score higher, let's say about ATAR 80 and above, or BBC and above, then students are automatically eligible for a 25% scholarship every year of their studies, as long as they don't fail any subject during their tertiary education.
Thank you, Ray.
Jimmy, if I could just add something to that. In terms of COVID, it does look promising right now going to Australia. In fact, yesterday, the Prime Minister of Australia just announced that they are working on establishing a channel where they will allow only international students to return to Australia. So that's a really good sign. The hope is that it can be open by next month. But as Ray said, they're intake is July, so it's quite tight now. It would be quite almost impossible, I'd say, to make an application and then expect to get in by July. Also, like Ray said, all the states were separate. They were closed from one another. So West Australia, South Australia, Queensland, and Tasmania were closed from the other states as well. So the Prime Minister said that in order to accept international students, all of the states will need to be open first before we take people from overseas. So that needs to happen first as well. So hopefully we're expecting maybe late July, August, international students can come with conditions. Now, Malaysia also not too bad compared with other countries, but still not great. So you look at countries like Vietnam, China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, they look like they might come first to Australia, and maybe after that Malaysia, maybe depending on where you're from in Malaysia as well, they may consider this. So there's so many things to work on, but we will keep you up to date with that. We're following very closely with COVID, and it's important as well. Also, other universities have what's called a trimester intake. They have intakes in October, and University of Tasmania has a pathway programs as well. They have diploma and foundations as well with that intake, so that can be considered as well. That's it.
Thanks for the update, Bo. Dato, the following one question will be directed directly to you. In your presentation earlier, you said when the student were to graduate from a regional area like Tasmania, he or she will entitle a bonus of 5 points for the skill migration. So is that 5 points only limited to Tasmania or any part of Australia?
Yeah, it's called regional study. So that opened up throughout the whole Australia. So usually regional study will exclude the major city. So like Melbourne, Sydney, there's a list of postcode. So since November last year, the department actually included Perth to be a regional postcode just for the migration purpose. So if you guys have any question on that, let us know where's the campus you have studied. Give us the name and the address. We'll be able to get you the postcode, and we'll let you know whether the extra 5 points is given.
Thank you, Dato. The next question, Ray, if someone were to start off with one course with Unitas halfway through, if he or she don't like it, is it possible to switch course in between?
Yes, there's also some condition to it. If let's say you are switching between science and you have the knowledge that is required, then it's not too big of a problem. Even if let's say you want to switch from an engineering to a business course, it's also doable. However, you won't go from after completing 1 year and you go second year immediately into a business course, whereby you have to start all over again from year 1 in the business course, because there are no similarity between the two courses, and therefore you have to start all over again.
Thanks. Due to the time allowed, I will only take the last question. Then any other question that we miss out, we apologize. Then we will get to you personally. Our team will contact you. The last question, which also a lot of parents actually are quite concerned, is do their children allowed to work when they study there? I mean, part-time, full-time, whichever work, so they can earn a bit of their own allowance, be more independent. So I don't know who best answer this question.
Yeah, I can come in. It is one of the visa condition for student visa. So they're basically allowed to work 20 hours, right? So which means once you're a student visa, there is certain hours that you can work, and during semester break, you can actually work full-time.
Okay, so during the semester break, which is during the school holiday, they can actually work like what, more than 20 hours, Dato?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm worried that this is the time that we all have. Thank you for joining us today, for us to share with you, and thank you to all our guest speakers today. Do join us again next week. We will have the South Australia representative with us, together with the home nursing program, to explore the business opportunity in South Australia and also via the home nursing program. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Bye. See you guys.
Thank you, everybody.